Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Guitar Geekery. Today we're actually going to walk through a repair that I did at my shop where I work during the daytime. Found it was a really interesting repair, something that I've been asked to highlight for a while here on the channel. So this week I think I'm just going to present this video, kind of walk you through the repair that I did. It was a really interesting pickup swap on a Hollowbody guitar that came into the shop. I thought it was an interesting process, having to swap out the pickups on that guitar and everything that was involved, since it was a Hollowbody and it's kind of an unusual project. This was a Glen Burton Hollowbody guitar, very similar to one of those big box Gibson arch tops or something like an Ibanez Artcore or something similar. Really beautiful guitar. I'm not too familiar with the Glen Burton name brand. I do know that it's a more affordable version of some of the more expensive jazz guitars. Overall, it was a really nice guitar. It seemed like it was pretty well made. Everything about it was pretty decently done. So, again, I'm not too familiar with the Glen Burton series, but this one looked like it was pretty good. So, you know, for whatever is worth it turned out to be a really nice guitar at the end of it. So, without further ado, here is the pickup replacement video, and hope you guys enjoy it. Alright, so this is that Glen Burton. As you can see, I've already taken the liberty to take the knobs off. The easiest way to do that is to pry them off with one of these spanner wrenches. ESP makes it. It's literally just called the ESP spanner, multi-spanner. ESP multi-spanner is what it's called. And they're available from Stuart McDonald. This version is the Music Nomad one. But yeah, it just fits underneath the knobs and it helps you pry them off. Take the nut and washers off, and then everything kind of falls into the body, and that's where I'm at. So the next step would be to fish that harness out of there. Alright, so now with the harness out of the body, and you're gonna have to do it through the F-hole usually when you get a guitar like this, so you know, you do what you can. The next step is going to be to just desolder these pickup leads, and pickups should be able to come right out. These particular pickups are single conductor plus a ground, so I don't think there's going to be that much of a hassle getting them off. So I'll go ahead and desolder these and pull the pickups out. Okay, so now that the pickup leads have been desoldered, we can just start taking these out, and it's as easy as just taking the pickup rings off, and they should slip right out. You can show me how the odds are up against me all day long, but I've been through the fire and come out alive, and there's no more fear in my eyes. Oh, now I'm rising. So with the pickup rings free, these will come right out. There we go, and that's why we desoldered these first before pulling them out of the body. Alright, so the next thing we do is we just got to take these pickup rings off. We're going to recycle these pickup rings when we put the new pickups in, so all we got to do is swap these out. So the deal with these is that we're going to save them, but they don't always fit every pickup. So the pickups that I'm going to install in them do have their own mounting screws. So we're just going to basically keep these as backup. I'm going to use the screws that came with the new pickups, just to be more, just to make sure that they fit the pickup. So we'll just set these aside. Okay, cool. So we just finished swapping out these pickup rings to the new pickups, and if you ever do a project like this, I'm gonna go. You can go ahead and mount these now. That's what I'm gonna do. Just get them out of the way. Not have to worry about them later. So normally you start with the neck first. This one doesn't have a route or a channel, so it kind of doesn't matter, but leave this hanging out. Same thing with the bridge pickup. Okay, so the one thing to keep in mind when you're putting them in the pickup rings and in the guitar is to mount them to where the screw coils are outboard and the slugs are inside. On these guitars, there'll be a ramp or an angle You want the smallest ones towards the neck and the higher ones towards the bridge. See? So we're gonna mount these in now. Also, make sure that the taller screws are on this one. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to change out these tone pots. So my customer actually wants to have some push-pull pots installed. These pickups are wired with 4 conductors so that you can actually split them to single coil. But to do that, we need to change out these pots to these push-pull pots. So swapping these out will allow us to have this switch in there to individually split these coils. Alright, so let's just wait for our soldering iron to finish heating up, and then we're going to desolder these tone pots right here. Alright, so just remove these tone pots. It's got some of these cheap Mylar caps on there. I don't know anything about the value of these caps, or what kind of condition they're in. Sometimes they do get leaky after a while, and this is an older guitar, so probably just going to replace these with regular orange drop caps of a known value that I know are going to work very well in conjunction with these pickups. So I'm going to just completely set these aside as is, but on the new ones I will solder the orange drop caps on these. So I'll do that here in just a second. Alright, so we've got these tone pots prepped now, or I've got them prepped now, so or you can see this, but there's a certain way that I like to prep them here. So what I do is I actually solder the ground and the capacitor to the switch and to the potentiometer before I even solder the rest of the wiring on there. So I just wanted to show you how I did that. And now what we got to do is just reattach them. So earlier what I did too is I labeled these volume pots bridge, tone, and that'll come in handy once we start putting it back into the body. When it's like this, it doesn't really matter which side gets which pot. They're both wired exactly the same. And as long as these haven't been removed, the volume pots are the ones that go to the switch. So again, you just have to make sure you know which way they're oriented, so when you add the switch back into the body, you can orient it the same way. And I'll show you that later. So anyway, I didn't show the soldering on the little harnesses and the little grounding wires that I added to this. This is going to be a whole separate video. Soldering this precise kind of needs to have its own video, so I'll do that later. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tin these lugs and get ready to add them to the rest of the harness. And that's basically what I'm doing right now. So I'm adding a tiny little drop of solder flux to it, which just helps the solder flow a little bit. And then I will tin that end, or that lug. Just with a little bit of tin, just to get ready to receive that other wire. So now they're tinned, and now we add the wire. Now with these are already pre-tinned because they were removed from the previous pickups. Another thing is you want to make sure you get any little burrs that are left over, some old solder. And you can essentially just add these back to that one lug. I like to come in through the back side of these. The reason for that is that these types of shielded wires, the grounding braid is gonna be over here on the back, and it just makes it a lot easier for you to solder that ground to the casing of the potentiometer there. So that's why I did that. So this one is now done. It is now in the rest of the circuit, ready to be mounted into the guitar. So now these components are all soldered together. And now it's time to solder the pickups in place. We're going to measure the distance between what's the hot and then everything else. Has to be able to span that distance between the two. So in this case it doesn't, so I'm going to have to cut this and strip the insulation back a little bit so that I can get some more length separation off of here. The reason for that is the hot lead, which is the black one in this case, is going to go on the volume pot, and everything else, your series link and your grounds, are going to go on to the volume of the tone pot over here on the housing of this switch. So we need to make sure that it covers that distance right here. So I'm just going to strip this back. Okay, so was able to strip these back, give it myself enough length to safely span the distance between the two potentiometers. I went ahead and re-added the shrink wrap. The shrink tubing that I use is basically just as a color coding for identification. This case, green being neck, red being bridge. And now all I have to do is just solder them, the two pickup leads, to the rest of the harness, and then I'll be ready to start to reassemble the guitar. And that's a whole ordeal. I may or may not record that because it's such a fishing game to go in there and try to fish everything back through in the right spots. But we'll see when I come up to that if I want to record the whole thing or not. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna resolder these back into the circuit and make sure that it functions properly, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so unfortunately I wasn't able to save any of the original video audio. There was just a lot of noise happening here at the workshop as I was trying to record this, so I'm having to voice over this particular segment of the video. But what you're seeing here is just a pretty simple way of me testing out the pickups before having to install the strings on the guitar. As you would probably imagine, if I have to pull something back out to revise something or check the wiring and the strings are already installed, it's going to be really difficult for me to work around that, or I'd have to take the strings back off again. So this tuning fork helps me do that. It's just a simple steel tuning fork.
and it functions exactly the same way as the strings would. The magnetic field of the pickups is going to capture the vibration of this tuning fork because the fork is interacting with the magnetic field of the pickups just like a string would. Doing this and using this method helps me test out all of the controls of the pickups, including volume and tone. The controls are going to react to this tuning fork pitch the same way they would to any regular guitar string, so I can also check the functionality of all of the controls to see that everything is not just working properly and transmitting a signal, but also functioning in the sense that it should, whether it's a volume pot or a tone pot or anything like that. In this case, it also lets me test the switching on the push-pull pots for the coil splits. So again, just a pretty simple and effective way to test out the pickups prior to installing the strings on the guitar.
Right, cool. So all the pots are back in place, the knobs back in place. I didn't show that because, quite honestly, it's a really tedious process, and there was probably a lot of cursing going on. So let's just say that it was an ordeal. These are back in place, and that's all you need to know. I'm just going to give this a quick cleanup. I'll restring it, and then we'll give it a test run, see if everything's going on. Before I do, though, I'm just making sure that all the hardware is nice and tight, especially the components that we just installed. So let's make sure that the switch, for example, is good and tight. These knobs I just tightened down. The output jack, we can probably give it a quick little check. And of course, all of this stuff will tighten up as soon as we add the strings to it. But right now, I'm just gonna get a quick wipe down since the strings are off and I have access to all this space. So that's what we're gonna do. This is what we're using today, just because I love these strings. Totally not sponsored by anybody. But I've always recommended these strings. I love them, so that's what we're using. A little trick when stringing up a Bigsby, a lot of people don't really know how to do this, or they do it the long way around, is you want to kind of bend this ball end right here to where the opening of that little ferrule is going to be perpendicular to the string itself. And then you just want to kind of kink it and make sort of a hook, just like that. That way you can slip it underneath the back of that tail piece, the spring part. And that'll help it catch once you slide it through the rest of the assembly here without it popping off. But before we do that, we're going to put this bridge studs back in place, which I have taken off just to clean it up. Don't worry about the height, we're going to adjust that later on with a string gauge or a string action ruler, just to make sure that it's perfect. Make sure that we're lining up these where they go. You can see them notched, thinner for treble side and thicker for bass side. So one of the handiest tools to have, just makes string winding a lot faster and easier. So sometimes they won't fit through here this way because this is a lot easier. Unfortunately, we'll have to do it the long way around. Needs to go underneath this forward or neckward pressure bar and then over the top of this rotating bar, this pivot bar. This is actually the true tailpiece. And then just hook them on. And there you go. It's nice and firm. All right, moment of truth. I'm gonna get it up to proper intonation, and then we'll fix the pickup height, the bridge height, all that good stuff. Neck pickup. Sounds killer. Cool. Yeah, it does. Thanks. Alright guys, well that was the pickup swap on that Glen Burton arch top. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is actually something that I want to be able to do a little bit more frequently. I want to be able to have some kind of tech related video up for you guys at least once a week moving forward. I'm still trying to figure out the frequency of how I want to do this or exactly how I want to format this, but tech videos and how-to stuff, you know, regular maintenance repairs and just like keeping your guitars in top playing shape. That's something that I'm very interested in sharing with you guys, primarily because it's what I do for a living, so it's a subject that I'm very familiar with. But again, I'm still trying to iron out all the little logistical issues of getting to do that for you guys. So if you have any suggestions or if you have any questions, want to see anything in particular, if there's something that you guys want to learn how to do with guitars or learn to do on your own guitars, please feel free to comment down below. Let me know what you guys want to see next, and I'll try to get it up here for you guys. Like I said, I'm open to any suggestions. I have a lot of material, but again, anything that you guys want to talk about specifically, that's something that I can, plan ahead for. So please feel free to just leave a comment there. But anyway, without going on too much more about that, thank you guys again for watching this video. I hope it was informative, and above all, I hope you guys had fun watching that. And as always, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, stay geeky, my friends. Bye.